Hello YouTube, this is going to be a way too long video explaining, it's going to be boring, but it's going to explain why Hubsan is hot garbage and why you really shouldn't buy a Hubsan product. First, it's going to be a four-part video basically. We're going to look at how the firmware update screwed up the drone and made it not fly properly anymore, and the fact that they can't seem to address that problem, and it still hasn't to this point been fixed. Two, how their customer support is an absolute joke. They pretend to have customer, they use nice words and they call you dear and stuff, but realistically, from the very moment that you get in contact with them, all they're trying to do is get you to send the drone around the planet to have somebody else that's not customer support fix the drone. And then that's probably at your own cost, because three, the warranty support is non-existent, despite the fact that they tell you they warranty their product for a year if you don't do something silly with it. When you have video evidence of you not doing something silly with it, for example, they'll still somehow try to blame you, and then they deny their fault, and then they'll say, no, it's your fault and we're not warranting it. And number four, I want to quickly talk about the calibration for the gyro and the IMU, because the compass calibration is identified and explained, but these two things have to be perfect for the drone to fly properly. And at the end of the day, if the drone's destroyed, it may have been because of that fault. So we're going to go into those one step at a time. So first, just addressing the firmware update. This drone, the Zino Mini, flew absolutely perfect for all of about 3 months that I had it. I've flown it in two different provinces, 2,000 kilometers apart. I've flown it in cities. I've flown it in the countryside. I've flown it over the ocean. I've flown it in fairly strong wind, and it flew well. And didn't crash. And I've flown it on perfect days. I've very much enjoyed having this drone. It was working absolutely perfectly, right up until the moment that I did a firmware update. And I did one firmware update in July, and after that firmware update, the drone experienced a malfunction and flew itself into a tree on a perfectly sunny, no wind day with no interference whatsoever around, after I had done an IMU calibration and everything. But the drone wasn't damaged that time. And since then, it's had dozens of flight hours. It's flown, like I said, over the ocean. It's flown perfectly. So I became weary of firmware updates from Hubsan. You don't want to be getting your firmware update from Hubsan. It'll screw up the drone. So I put off getting the latest firmware update for probably another month. And every time I would fly the drone, it would remind me there was a firmware update. And eventually, finally, under perfect circumstances, I decided today's the day I'm going to do this firmware update, and I'm going to fly this drone. And I'm going to fly it over a farmer's field, away from everything, so that if the firmware update screwed it up and it does crash again, it'll crash under the very best of circumstances. I have absolutely no faith in that firmware update, and so I actually waited and finally did it. Everything was by the book, flew the drone, and started experiencing problems. The problem that I experienced was the first time I flew the drone out to about 2,000 meters, and I have the logs to show this, 2,000 meters away, just to test it, just to make sure that the firmware hadn't screwed it up, and flew the drone back, and on the way back it lost connection suddenly. So it was about half the distance it had been, and suddenly the connection just went right out. And true to the GPS signal, that the thing it flew itself back and landed itself without any connection to my cell phone or the controller at all. It was pretty scary. I thought I'd lost the drone, and then it came magically overhead and landed. So I tried taking off again, and I got to only about 600 meters away, and then it lost connection again, flew back again. By the third time, it was getting to half that, and I have video also showing it finally only getting about a meter off the ground and sitting there in front of me and losing connection. At one point, it even lost connection on the ground before even taking off. So here, just a few minutes after that first loss of connection, and you can see it go right in front of your eyes right there. And another few minutes after that, another attempt. You can see it right before your eyes, right about here, at only about 140 meters away, and the connection goes again. It just disappears. Another few seconds later, try again. And here it is, literally just floating in front of me at 1.6 meters. It's right in front of me, and it loses connection there again. And then this is the next day, slightly different circumstance. Now the drone is almost fully charged, and there goes that connection again, just disappears. And the drone has to fly itself back. And again, just another few minutes later, you can suddenly see the telemetry stop coming in at around 220 meters. So it just loses connection. And here it is losing connection at a hover in front of me at 1.6 meters off the ground. There's a lot more videos like this I was trying over and over and over, and I have to stress once again, this drone was working 100%, and I would have recommended it to anybody right up until the moment I did that firmware update and it would lose connection.
Oh, and up we go. Sure you want to take off? Yeah, sure.
The home point has been updated.
Up it goes.
Please be mindful of the new return to
And let's just go straight up. Straight up. So we'll take it up to about 60 meters should do. Okay, and forward we go. And she's flying. She's taking off. So we are now at distance 200 meters. Oh, just got choppy. And 0 bars.
poor signal. Please adjust the
It's
antenna.
not a poor signal. It goes from 4 to 0 in less than 30 seconds. In less than 3 seconds. You're flying just fine, 4 bars, and then all of a sudden it just decides nope. And that's some bullshit. And it was working fine right up until the firmware update yesterday. Okay, so now let's turn it off. Turn it on. So the first time it made it to 1600 meters. That time it didn't even make it 400 meters. Let's see if it connects on its own. 400, maybe 500? No, I don't even think it was 400. And look at that. It's gonna... Yep, there she is. Fly. Yep.
The home point has been updated.
Just gonna hover it.
Please be mindful of the new return to home point.
Okay. Can you see here? Just hovering. I want to see if it's a time thing. I really don't think it's a distance thing. There's a little bit of flight time there. I'm going to try taking it up a little bit. Won't go any higher than that. Oh, look at this. It just disconnected. Okay. Oh, man. I don't know if it's because I tried sending it up, but unbelievable. 3 meters distance, and it's disconnecting. So, yeah, that's screwed.
And in looking at that video, I know what some of you are going to say. They're going to say, well, the controller battery was down to 20%, so it's beeping, so really it shouldn't be able to maintain a connection. My response to that would be that previous to that video, I'd already lost connection twice that day. The controller battery was much higher at that point. This is the 3rd or 4th time I've lost connection that day. And the other response would be, if you can't fly the drone at 20%, then why is 20% not 0%? Recalibrate the percentages if that's the case. But it's not the case. I had flown this drone many times with the battery at 20%, and it's not losing connection. That's why it starts giving you a warning in advance. In any event, this next little 20-second video shows the drone at a slightly lower battery percentage, but the battery in the remote at about 3/4, and you still lose connection at something like 3 meters.
Okay, we're gonna go up.
Poor signal. Please adjust the antenna.
Poor signal. It's 3 feet away. The signal has gotten worse since I did this last update. This is nonsense. I'm completely disconnected now.
And this was an ongoing issue. And I contacted Hubsan. I'll show you into point number 2 about how their customer support is a joke. And they went back and forth with me ad nauseum about 20 times until finally I decided to try to fly the drone again under absolutely perfect circumstances using a GoPro camera to film the entire event.
Abnormal compass readings again? No, it accepted at that time. Okay, so let's do the gyro calibration.
So this gyro calibration is where I'm maybe rightfully being criticized by some for not having placed the drone on the ground and perfectly level and horizontal surface while I do the gyro calibration. We'll be talking about the on-screen instructions and the instruction manual for gyro calibration in just a moment.
There we go. I am successful. Let's restart the aircraft manually. Open her up. Okay, so for the record, this is my environment. No interference from anything around.
I will add also that this drone is terrible at acquiring GPS. It took forever to acquire GPS almost every time I ran this drone, versus a DJI that probably acquired the GPS in about 1/8 the time or 1/10 the time.
There we go, ready to fly.
The home point has been updated. Please be mindful of the new return to home point.
Off we go. Take it up to... Oh, there it goes on its own. Okay, it's flying on its own right now.
Winds. Please
High
fly
winds.
with
It's going to
caution.
crash.
The
Down
gimbal
it goes.
is under protection. Please check if it is jammed.
Great.
Poor signal. Please adjust the antenna.
That's fantastic. So, just broke the drone. Did everything by the book. Okay, well there's the battery. Yeah. There's the drone. It's got a broken wing. Another broken propeller. So this is garbage. Yeah.
So here you can see me take off with the drone. You'll notice the inputs on the left, an upward input straight up, little to the left, little to the right, in a yaw. And then the drone starts going forward, and I'm looking down, I look back up, I see it start to take off to the left, well to the right, and then it circles around to the left, no inputs on the sticks whatsoever. And so then you can see me start to input to the right, trying to get it back on course, and it's completely ballistic. It's just ignoring my inputs completely. And down it goes. And that will bring an end to part 1. Hubsan firmware updates are hot garbage. Part 2 is Hubsan customer service is hot garbage. So moving on, obviously I contacted customer service to say, hey, I've got a problem here. For the last 3 days and the last 12 flights, give or take, I've been experiencing this issue you just witnessed. And this is what ends up happening in my emails. Hello, I own a Hubsan Zino Mini with the serial number, with remote serial number. I performed a firmware update on both the remote and the aircraft 2 days ago, and since then I've had the same recurring issue. The first flight after the update, I calibrated the compass, gyro, and IMU. I got a GPS lock and flew at approximately 2 kilometers away and had a strong connection to the remote throughout. On the return flight at approximately 1,600 meters, the remote suddenly lost connection entirely, prompted by the voice telling me I had a weak connection. It went from 4 bars to complete loss in less than 2 seconds. The drone flew back under GPS and landed without connection the whole way. I restarted the drone and I reconnected. I took off and flew about 300 meters away before it lost connection in the same manner again. It again returned under GPS and landed. I tried a third time and it lost connection again. I charged the batteries and attempted the same thing the next day. It behaved the same way, giving me a 4-minute flight far away before losing connection the first time, then going much less far the second before losing connection. On the third attempt, the drone was less than 2 meters away hovering when it lost connection. I have videos showing this behavior. I've just now done the same thing for a third day with the drone losing connection on the third attempt before even taking off. Please advise on how to fix this issue. The drone had a crash 2 months ago due to a bad IMU calibration after another firmware update, but has been working flawlessly since then, flying another 5 or 6 times. It only started this problem after the last firmware update. I put off performing this update for those 2 months precisely because of the trouble the last update gave me. Flight conditions have been perfect, low wind and sunny days with GPS as evidenced by the drone returning, thankfully. Now, I do have to add that when I say flying another 5 or 6 times, I'm not sure why I wrote 5 or 6 times. In actuality, I probably flew the drone another 20 to 30 times since that crash in July. So a little later the next day, I received my first response from Rayleigh Tan at Hubsan Technology. Hi dear, could you kindly submit the flight log of the drone as attached step and tell us your registered email on app? And may I know which country are you from? You could inquiry our repair center for checking, and it could be the problem of cable. My next response to her was to tell her what my email address was that I was registered with for the drone, and that I had attempted to sync the flight logs using a little cloud button, but that's actually not how it happens. So she then responded, "Hi Tony, thanks for the feedback. We only find the log on 24th August and the drone has not enough power. This could have influence. Could you submit more issue logs to us? We suggest the controller, phone, and drone need have enough power and find a broad place for flight. Thanks." My next response right away was, "I have synced my flight logs again, so hopefully you should see them. Look at the topographical map and you'll see the big field. Also, power levels were completely full on drone at all times and on drone and transmitter on last day. I have a video of the failures that's about 5 minutes long showing the drone losing connection at 3 meters away." Apparently I still wasn't syncing the logs properly because her response was, "Hi Tony, yes, not to sync the log, need to submit the log one by one. Please kindly check attached method. It will prompt success after submit. Thanks for your patience. You could also inquiry our local repair center directly." So you can see right away from the very first email response, she's telling me, "No, check with the repair center, don't check with customer service." Basically, she wants nothing to do with me and to talk about my problem. And she hasn't told me where the repair center is yet. So my next response is, "Okay, got it, thanks. I've submitted all the pertinent logs. You'll notice how all 3 days I flew a longer distance and flew at least part way back or all of the way back before it randomly lost transmission altogether. Each longer trip was then followed by progressively shorter trips where it would lose connection faster and faster, culminating in a total loss at a 1 meter hover right after takeoff. Thanks, Tony." So now, having reviewed the logs that I went through the trouble of sending her, which shows the drone losing connection for no reason whatsoever, instead of addressing that problem, she goes back to what she already knew had happened, that there was a crash in July where the drone had hit a tree. "Hi dear, the drone had crashed on 3rd July and 4th July could cause potential risks. Would it be convenient for you to send back to our repair center or our China warehouse to repair? Best regards." So basically just send us the drone because we can't talk about firmware and any of that stuff. In the meantime, the drone is fine. It just keeps losing connection since I did the firmware update, like I explained to her. I had also explained to her that I had had a crash in July, but I told her that since that crash, I'd flown the thing at least 5 or 6 times. We've already discussed it was probably more than that, 10 or at least 20 or 30. And so based on that, my response was, "Is there a way to roll back the firmware update to factory settings? It worked fine right up until I did that. I flew the thing for hours and hours without issue. This video, for example," and I linked a YouTube video where I flew the drone. "So I want to know if I can roll back the firmware update." And I guess my thought was, we're thinking about an electronic device like a cell phone, so maybe you can just start it up on a factory setting. In any event, she responds, "Hi dear, may I know what the drone previous firmware version you need and which country are you from?" And maybe there's a way to know that. I don't know what that way to know it is. Once you do the firmware update, you've lost that 20-digit number that the old firmware was. So my response was, I don't know what the firmware version was. I only know the drone was working great up until the latest version. Is there a factory reset option? I'm in Canada. Thanks. Her response again, okay, please tell us your previous version. So I don't know if she's just not reading the emails. But anyway, so we will give you the version before that. But I am not sure, there could be potential risks if rolled back to previous version. So I repeat myself and say the same thing again. I can't know what the previous version was, only the current version. And that's the latest version that they've put out. Then I responded further, as a better explanation of the problem, I've uploaded this video showcasing the issue and linked a YouTube video where I show the drone losing the connection. So after the terrible crash, almost 5 days, 4 days, but almost rolling into the 5th day after the crash, I still hadn't heard back from her again, so I respond again. Hello, having not gotten a response from you for 4 days, including after showing you the problem in a video and asking about rolling back the updates, I tried flying the drone again in perfect weather conditions tonight, and it crashed and destroyed itself. I made sure the power levels of the drone, controller, and phone were at maximum and performed a compass calibration and IMU calibration before launch, and the drone flew itself unassisted into the ground at top speed within seconds of takeoff. I've uploaded the flight data, which shows it take off in a leftward direction and shows my inputs trying to right it by pressing it to the right with no effect whatsoever. I expected the drone to lose connection, such as during my last 3 flights, and the reason for this correspondence, so I was filming the entire event, including the calibrations. I've uploaded them to YouTube so you'll be able to see them and believe that I flew the drone appropriately and that weather conditions were favorable. The URL for the video is, and I show the URL. I'm asking for either a refund of the value of the drone or a new drone to replace it. The drone has a broken wing and the battery has a broken tab, so I don't believe it's repairable. As far as I'm concerned, it's the fault of Hubsan that this drone is destroyed, as it was working immaculately, and I was happy to tell people how great it was until I performed this last update. The update broke it. I'll be looking forward to your response. Thank you. So I know she watched the YouTube video of me doing the calibration and the weather conditions and everything, because her response indicates that she thought it was in strong wind, and I mean, that's a ridiculous statement to make. You can clearly see that there's no wind at all. If nothing else, you can't hear the wind, but there's nothing moving. There was absolutely zero wind that day. But I know she watched the video because of that, because the controller screamed out that there was strong wind while the drone was crashing. Hi Tony, I'm waiting for engineer to send previous version to me, but the drone once had crashed on 3rd and 4th July. Latest flight in 10th September is in strong wind. Sorry, the drone is not in warranty now. You could send it to our Italy repair center to repair charged. Sorry for the inconvenience. So now she wants me to package up the drone at my own expense and send it halfway around the planet to Europe to have them repair it, and then probably pay for them to have it sent back to me. I don't know how much it costs to send something halfway around the world, but it's not. I'm not of the opinion that I did anything wrong here, and that they screwed up their own product with the firmware update. So being a little bit miffed at her response, because she's implying that I was flying the drone in strong winds and that's why it crashed, I wrote back, the destructive crash on the 10th of September was absolutely not in high winds. Just watch the video. Winds were at 0. You can see trees. You can hear me talking in a low voice, and there's no wind noise. The controller said high winds as the drone was already ballistic and crashing. There is no argument about the wind on the 10th. The drone did crash into a tree once, not twice, in July. But since then, it's had dozens of flight hours with no issues whatsoever. This video, for example, and I link yet another video I've made with the drone. And this video, and I link another video that I've made with the drone, where I'm flying over a bay in the ocean with no worries whatsoever, as well as dozens other flights and videos for which I have evidence and logs which show the drone was working perfectly, not somewhat, until the moment your company decided to mess with the software and I contacted you because it's not working. Then On video, it goes nuts and crashes. Don't say it was because of high winds when your own eyes and ears can see the most windless day ever. I don't even know what the warranty is for the drone, which was honest, I hadn't looked it up yet. But if long after the warranty expires, Hubsan goes and uploads a firmware update to the drone that breaks it, then the duration of the warranty is meaningless because Hubsan is as responsible for its destruction as if it had come broken off the factory floor. I'll further await your response. And that sort of brings us to an interesting philosophical debate. If a company puts out a product with a 1-year warranty, and then a year and a half after they put the product out, they put out a mandatory firmware update, and you put the mandatory firmware update into their hardware, and the hardware reacts by breaking, should the hardware still be warranted? I would think so. I would think that they roll back the warranty when they take responsibility for updating the software. In any event, the response that I got shortly after was, "Hi Tony, sorry, but you could inquiry our Europe, Italy repair center for checking and repair." So she's just basically ignoring what I just said. I'm still at this point curious now about the warranty. So I go and look up the warranty and find that the warranty is actually on Hubsan products for 1 year, and that it basically covers the product as long as you don't do anything silly with it. I had video evidence of me not doing anything silly with it. And she wants me to spend all kinds of hundreds of dollars sending the thing to the other side of the world. So I responded, "So why exactly is it you're implying the drone isn't under warranty?" I look at the Hubsan website. It shows a 1-year warranty, and the drone was just purchased in April of 2022 and received in June 2022. The following conditions must be met for a product to be eligible for a Hubsan warranty service. This is a copy paste from their website. I have no idea what the heck that series of numbers in the first one is. But B, the product was bought completely new and sealed. C, the product does not have unauthorized disassembling, modification, or installation. D, no signs of falsification on product labels, serial number, watermark, etc. E, the transaction receipt or proof of purchase is provided, which I could. F, the product is not damaged by user neglection or factor. G, for repair or replacement of severely damaged products under warranty, you must provide sufficient evidence that damage occurred due to part or copter defect. You can't do better than having a video, I would think. I have video proof of my performing all the instructed procedures prior to takeoff and flying it appropriately, and it destroyed itself. The damage was absolutely due to copter defects. This is now a warranty issue. If I'm going to send this thing halfway around the world, I want to know it'll be repaired for free as per warranty. Also, the shipping should be paid for. So 3 days later, she's not going to address the flying. She's not going to address the warranty. 3 days later, just like the very first message response I got from her, she's just trying to send me back to the repair center. "Hi, dear customer, the drone crashed before, could lead to potential risk, which cannot carry warranty. You could inquiry the repair center about the cost." I do have to note there was no damage in that first crash. The drone flew, I flew it immediately after the crash and it was fine. So it's flown dozens of flight hours since then, and it's taken me until this response, like her 10th response, for me to realize that since the very first contact I made with her, all she was trying to do was get me to send the hardware to Italy. So honestly, at this point, I'm pretty satisfied that I'm not going to get anywhere with this. This is supposed to be customer service, and the only service that she's trying to tell the customer is send it at your own expense to Italy. So my response, notwithstanding the fact that the single crash occurred in the immediately subsequent flight to the last firmware update, hence the very reason I didn't want to perform this firmware update for over a month, out of fear it would screw up the drone. The drone was fine after that event and flew countless hours perfectly afterwards. So I'm not sure how you can possibly suggest that after this last firmware update, the drone coincidentally picked this moment on its own, on its very first and subsequent flights, to remember a crash-worthy issue had occurred 2 months earlier, and completely forgotten how to fly. If you have the flight telemetry from that date, you'll note A, it was the first flight after a firmware update, which is true. B, it was at a shooting range far from any structures or electronic interference, basically in the middle of nowhere. C, the drone was calibrated for compass and IMU as prompted. D, the GPS lock was proper. E, atmospheric conditions were appropriate with no wind. F, the crash occurred within seconds of takeoff, exactly as in the case of this last catastrophic crash. And G, inputs on the controller were in the opposite direction of that drone flew in before the crash, i.e. I was pushing to the left and it was going to the right. The drone was ballistic and uncontrollable, just as this last time. The bottom line is that event had nothing to do with this event, flight hours and hours afterwards. Please show me any indication that the drone had ever been flown in an inappropriate manner, voiding the warranty. You have the flight telemetry and the logs and can see for yourself. This is exactly what warranties are for companies to stand by their products. So that last message had been sent on September 16th. And so 5 days later, I tried again. I'm still waiting for any evidence that I didn't properly fly the drone in July or when it crashed in September, thereby voiding the warranty. Any evidence whatsoever. This drone should still be under warranty. You need to take responsibility for your product. Video evidence uploaded to YouTube shows the drone flying perfectly and then not functioning after this firmware update, then crashing on video after a proper calibration without any fault of mine. It's recorded on video. I'm not sure what else I could possibly do to prove to you the warranty should not be voided and should in fact be valid. Please address this warranty question before saying the drone crashed before could lead to potential risk. That's complete speculation and it's not supported by the hard video proof. The onus is on you to show the drone was flown inappropriately, not on me to show it wasn't. I've already done that with proof. I expect to hear back from you with more detail. And then I still didn't hear back from her another 5 days later, so we're now 10 days after my first response. And I've pretty much given up, but I thought I'm gonna let her know I'm ticked off, and I wrote, I'm still waiting. I paid a lot of money for this product a mere 4 months ago, and it's still on warranty unless you can show me any reason you believe it, quote, was flown in an inappropriate manner, unquote, as your warranty policy says. I've shown you video proof twice that it was not flown inappropriately and that I followed all the onboard instructions for flight. You owe it to your customers to stand by your product. What you can't do is just ignore them. And so I thought we were done there, but imagine my shock when I got another response from her on October 10th. So the last response I got from her was September 16th. This story is lasting way too long now. Hi Tony, as last time the controller disconnection. Did the controller and phone has enough power? I cannot believe she's still asking me this question. It's already been talked about 3 times now. Generally, if has enough power, the control will not disconnected. And last crash we check, it could be the gyro not calibrated well. If the disconnection still persists, you could contact Repair Centaur to check. You've got to be kidding me. It feels like she hasn't read a single email, watched a single video. Maybe she's completely forgotten who I am at this point. Like, she's got too many people calling because their Hubsan is a piece of garbage and they want a refund. Well, at this point, I've got no response for her except I'm beside myself. And I said the phone, controller, and aircraft were all at maximum power. But that shouldn't matter. I shouldn't lose connection because it's not fully charged, or the charge indicator wouldn't be useful. There's no point to having a charge indicator that says 20%, for example, if it loses connection due to insufficient power at that level. 20% might therefore as well be recalibrated to 0. Besides, this was simply not an issue that existed until the firmware update. I'd flown countless hours regardless of charge levels without issue. You can see on the uploaded video itself that even after it loses connection, returns to home, and I restarted to reestablish connection, it does in fact connect again for a minute before then losing connection mere feet away from me after a minute again. She's still asking me about whether the power levels were okay. She has the flight logs and she can see the power levels in the flight logs, and she can see it lose connection inexplicably on the return trip halfway back from having gone way far out, and then for no reason losing connection a meter away from me. That was October 10th. As I sit here recording this today, it's October 27th. We're more than a month and a half after the initial response before this one, which was almost a month before this one. She's completely checked out. This is garbage customer service. She's not even trying. She's watched the videos, she's read the emails, she's looked at the flight logs, and she still is somehow suggesting that maybe the drone or the controller didn't have enough power. So at the end of the day, I'm left thinking that I wasn't dealing with a customer service representative. I was dealing more with a bot of some kind with select programmed responses like send it to the Repair Centaur. What was the previous firmware version, even though I already told her there's no way for me to actually know what that is. The power must have been too low. Surely it's your fault because the power on the transmitter was too low, or the drone was too low, or the cell phone. And incidentally, I'm going to completely ignore all of your questions as to why we shouldn't validate the warranty. It's all on you. Maybe I'm not being fair in some of your mind. Leave me comments again if you think that I'm not being fair. But at the end of the day, customer service, what did I expect from her? if the thing has to go back to Italy, to the repair center in Italy, my thought is, at the very least, her suggestion should have been, if your drone's not working properly and she couldn't roll back the firmware, then I'm going to send you a slip to put on a parcel so that you can send it free of charge to Italy so that we can check the thing out. At the very least, then I'd have the confidence as a customer of knowing that I'm not going to be on the hook for that money, and they're going to be holding my drone and say, oh, by the way, it's going to cost $400 to fix your drone, and you're on the hook for it because we suddenly decided you're not warranted on it. So I think the customer service at Hubsan is hot garbage. I think paired with their firmware at Hubsan is hot garbage. It's all hot garbage. That finishes part 2. A very long part, I know. And part 3, their warranty is hot garbage. I don't have much to say about that, except that there's apparently zero way for you to prove to them that you were flying the drone in an effective manner and that you were following all of the instructions. The warranty is completely meaningless. If you actually manage to capture the moment of a catastrophic crash with the drone on video and show them the video, they still somehow poke holes at it and somehow blame you. It must have been your fault somehow. So if you're buying a Hubsan product, know that there's no warranty on it. Know that there's no way, unless the drone comes right out of the package, that you have an unboxing event and you cut the package open the day you receive it and the drone is missing a wing. They're not fixing that drone for you. They're not going to be respecting that warranty of theirs. Know that going in. Hubsan's warranty is hot garbage. And that's all I have to say about part 3. I want to address part 4 really quickly. Their instructions. So part 4, we're almost done here. I know it's been a really long review, a very long story. My anecdote is terrible, but I want people to know. Part 4 is their instructions are hot garbage.
Okay, so what we have here is the Hubsan Mini instruction manual, the user manual as provided by Hubsan online. Okay, and what I'm looking for is any indication of how to properly perform a gyro calibration. So let's first start by looking up the word gyro. And we got anything for gyro? No. Okay, so gyro doesn't factor anywhere into this instruction manual. The next calibration after the gyro that you have to do the gyro first is the IMU calibration. So let's search IMU. Oh, okay, and we come up with maximum speed, maximum 8 meters, maximum flight, maximum angle, maximum speed, maximum speed, maximum speed, maximum flying, maximum flight speed, maximum flight speed, minimum distance, and that's it. Okay, so IMU's not in here. You know what? Let's keep it vague and try calibration. How about that? Maybe it'll tell us how to calibrate, and it doesn't use the word gyro or IMU. So in the contents here is our first use of the word calibration: transmitter calibration, compass calibration, and then compass calibration, transmitter calibration, and then the instructions on how to calibrate the transmitter, and it uses the word calibration over and over. Compass calibration, okay, talks about how to calibrate the compass properly, turning the drone and then turning it on its nose. Okay, so let's keep looking for calibration here. Looking for IMU or gyro. Regular calibration, compass calibration, and then over to the facts. Now we're in the frequently asked questions. Do the compass calibration and horizontal calibration. And that's it. But it doesn't tell us what a horizontal calibration is. Okay, well, let's go back to the compass calibration here. Okay, what comes after compass calibration? So after compass, that's 3.4. 3.5 is starting, stopping the motors. Oh, okay, so, and then aircraft functions, GPS mode, optical flow mode. So nothing in the instruction manual tells us how to properly calibrate the gyro or IMU. Okay. Well, we'll go back and look at what the aircraft tells us.
So right now we're looking at the app for the Hubsan Zino Mini. And, starting at the calibrations, we do the compass calibration. That one's easy. We've been guided through it. You can't do it wrong, or it tells you. Then the gyro, it simply says to keep the aircraft at a standstill during the calibration process. Meaning, you could hold the thing on its head and hit the start calibration button, and it might still say calibration completion, which it says when you push that button. And then all you're left with is the IMU, but apparently that gyro is so very important. The IMU is a well guided process. It walks you through it. If you don't do it properly, it won't let you complete it. So the gyro is important, and they give you no instruction on how to do it at all. So at the end of this really long review and story, my moral is don't buy a Hubsan. It's hot garbage. You may like your Hubsan. If you have a Hubsan and you think this drone works fantastic, that's great. Mine worked fantastic right up until it didn't. And when it didn't, Hubsan customer service was non-existent. The bot had its pre-programmed answers to give me. And as a separate issue, apparently calibrating the gyro is a thing that they don't explain to you at all. So as a consumer, I'm left wondering if it's my fault that I'm doing something improperly, if I was never actually told how to do it. I reviewed this drone. Why did I buy this Hubsan? It's a 249 micro drone. I wanted a 249 gram less drone. And I already had a DJI, so I went with this Hubsan because it doesn't have geofencing. I'm not a big fan of the geofencing, that's just me. But I did my homework, I watched the reviews. I'm a big fan of Captain Drone's channel on YouTube. Check out his channel, very entertaining, Captain Drone. He does great reviews. I would have reviewed this drone favorably last, I guess, a month and a half ago. It's been a while since this problem developed. But now I'm left saying, do not buy Hubsan. Hot garbage. Stay away from Hubsan. Stick with DJI or something like that. That's the end of this long story. It's gotten late. The sun's gone down. My glass of wine's gone empty. So I'll bid you adieu and keep your stick on the ice. Keep your stick on the ice? Why did I say keep your stick on the ice? That makes me sound so Canadian. Such a cliche. Damn it. I hate cliches.